All right, so we're gonna look at the 5 top Dave Ramsey quotes that have had a big impact on my life. Now, I live in the same hometown as Dave, and almost every other person I meet here works for Dave. And I've read a handful of Dave's books. I've seen a whole bunch of his videos. I went through FPQ. So he's just had a really big impact on my life, and he has a way with words where he has over the years come up with some fantastic one-liners that are really succinct and just nuggets of wisdom. And so that's what we're gonna look at today. And if you are new here, my name is Bob Lotich, and on this channel or website, we actually do some similar stuff to Dave. Basically, we give you practical tips and strategies to put more money in your pocket by saving more, paying off debt, all that. And then we also talk about timeless biblical principles and how they apply to the whole equation as well. So if that sounds good to you, definitely subscribe so you can hear from us as we create more content. All right, so let's kick it off with the first quote. Not until the pain of the same is greater than the pain of change will you embrace change. And I remember Tony Robbins saying something similar, so I'm not sure who got it from who, but either way, I definitely think that's true. And in some ways, it's a blessing when things get so bad that you just actually have to change. Because when things are just okay, it's easy just to float in that mediocrity for a while. But when things really get bad and you get to that breaking point, that's when you can really make some massive life change. And that's what happened to me in my financial situation. Like, I was just floating in mediocrity and things just slowly were getting worse and worse until I got to the breaking point. And then from there, that's when I began to really make some massive changes. You know, and we all know like that breaking point often gets us to a point where we can actually pray and ask God for help. And then of course, that's when things really change. All right, quote number 2, you must gain control over your money or the lack of it will forever control you. Now, I spent most of my life not being in control of my money and having my money just kind of be in control of me and leading me. And it's a very, very different thing when you get in control of your money. You know, and once I made that change that I was going to be in control of my money, even when I didn't have much or any at all, everything began to change because the momentum shifted and I began just moving in the right direction. And it was just like a snowball. And so Dave talks about the debt snowball, but this is just kind of like a snowball in momentum financially, where if you start making good financial decisions over and over again, it just gets bigger and they start fueling this change that's happening. All right, quote number 3, the key to winning with money is to live on less than you make. Act your wage, quit spending like you are in Congress. I find that particularly in the US, we just have no concept of this idea of acting your wage and actually spending the money that we have instead of using credit to kind of keep up with what our neighbors are doing. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's because we just don't want to tell ourselves no. I'm not really sure what the cause is, but it's definitely an epidemic in the US. And the really interesting and amazing thing about this is that this is by far the simplest and yet most profound like financial tip that you can ever have. If you just spend less money than you actually have, you can almost guarantee that you are going to be in a good financial position for the rest of your life. On the other hand, if you consistently spend more than you earn, like so many of us in the US do, you are going to be in trouble. There's just no way around it. It is going to catch up with you eventually. Like, you can only make this last for so long. To dive in a little bit deeper on this, I created another video about the seesaw principle that you should check out if you really want to figure out how to build wealth and how to build a secure financial future for the long term. All right, quote number 4, ever notice that when you are broke, everything is an emergency? And I love this because it is so painfully true. I've been there, you probably have been there, maybe you haven't, but it really is the case. Yeah, I spent so many years where money just felt like an endless stream of chaos. And it basically came down to the point that there was no margin, there was no safety net, so the smallest little thing could go wrong, and then it would just kickstart an avalanche of things that would turn into a really big problem. And for a variety of reasons, like so many of us, I discovered that a credit card doesn't make a great emergency fund. And really having a cash emergency fund changes the game. It just makes a huge difference. And so I completely agree with Dave's advice of starting to build an emergency fund, have an emergency fund in place even before you start paying off your debt. All right, number 5, if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. And this is one of Dave's most famous quotes, and it's so true, and I really do love it. Because winning with money does require sacrifice, and it takes time. It's not rocket science, but it does require a consistent doing of the things that we need to do. And on the other hand, when you continue to do them, like Dave says, on the back end, you can live like no one else. You can live in a really good financial position. This is part of why we named the website SeedTime, because at the beginning you're planting seeds, you're not really seeing much happening, it looks small, but years down the road of continuing to nurture and care for this tree, you find yourself in this garden with all these fruit-bearing trees that are so much bigger than you could have imagined. All right, so those are my top 5 Dave quotes. Let me know down in the comments below which quotes of his you would add to this list. And in this next video, I'm gonna take you through 5 Bible verses about money that I think every Christian should know. So head on over to that video and I'll see you over there.